of the Black Briefing Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Samantha Douglas.
I'm Wild Style Pichelle.
Wild Style for show. And then we also have a very special guest, Miss Jade Jackson.
Yay!
Hey.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Excited to be here.
We're excited to have you here. So how's things been going?
Things have been really, really well.
Good.
Yeah.
So tell folks about like who you are, what you do, because I know there's a lot of, because you're kind of behind the scenes a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who don't know you.
So I have been a working journalist for the better part of almost a decade since college. Yeah. So
I know she looks like a baby. She's been in it for a little while.
People ask me, how old are you? Grown. Yeah. But I started off doing television news for the most part, transitioned over to writing for different publications here in Indianapolis. I'm from here, born and raised, West Side, grew up in Hallville, graduated from Ben Davis, would have went to Ball State, but eventually.
We forgive you from being from the West Side.
What side are we on right now? Wait a minute, why aren't you from the West Side?
I'm a West Sider.
So
No.
who is that? Why is she talking?
I am definitely
he's
a West
not.
Sider.
He is
Wait, where are
definitely
you
an
from?
East Sider.
I am definitely a West Sider.
He
my
went
family,
to Warren.
my
Y'all
family.
can't hear my
I
husband saying
lived
that
in
in the back.
Riverside before I ever went to the Far East Side.
Can we get the camera on all three of us so
Hallville.
you can see us all having this conversation?
Where the West Side are you from?
Riverside.
Riverside? Okay.
I had a
Why y'all
stint.
saying he not from here?
I had a
Because
stint.
he went out here. He went to school out here.
I had a stint out on the Far East Side. It was the middle
Right.
part of my life.
A long stint. So don't let him play.
Y'all just trying to claim him.
No, I think the whole city can claim Wild.
No, because I've only lived two places: is
No.
the Far East Side
East and West.
Riverside near Northwest.
Yeah.
Nice.
East
Well,
and
my
West.
dad used to. He's since passed away, but he used to own Gateway Motel that's over there off Lafayette Road.
Oh.
So I'm really West Side, y'all.
That's very
deep,
West Side.
Deep
Hallville.
West Side.
Listen,
Fine.
Hallville.
But you've also had the opportunity to work around the country, though, right?
I have.
In other
So
places.
I ended up going to school at the University of North Texas,
Okay.
where I got my degree in journalism.
Mm-hmm.
But it was in public relations, not necessarily like news. I just
Yeah.
kind of stumbled upon news because it just became like a passion of mine when I was in college. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I love telling people stories. So eventually I ended up getting my first job in Shreveport, Louisiana,
Mm-hmm.
traveled kind of up to Little Rock, Arkansas. And then I got asked to come back to Indianapolis, my hometown.
Oh,
So I've just been here
wonderful.
since then.
Yeah.
Been here for like the past 2.5 years now.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, obviously, because Jade is a journalist, we could go 1,000 different ways. But because you have focused on public safety now for a while, that's kind of the angle we'll take today. I feel like most of the
Okay, nice.
conversation
Was that
today.
your intention to do public safety though?
Yeah.
I ended up falling in love with breaking news.
Okay.
You know, public safety was always a part of just breaking news in general. So like when I did TV news, I was always like what you call general assignment. I could do any story, whether it was politics, education. But when it came to breaking, that's like my bread and butter. I like being able to just go to a scene,
Okay.
you know, trying to dig deep to find information for the folks out there.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I wish we had more folks
Yeah. I know.
that try to dig deep, rather.
Right,
that part.
instead of, like-
Everybody wants to be at the scene.
They want to be at the scene and then they want to
Yeah.
put their own narrative on
That's a
everything.
fact.
Like,
That's a
I
fact.
think it's this. Like, can we ask what happened first?
Yeah, but it's also a difficult space to be in,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I mean, breaking news, especially public safety things, and like emotionally charged. So, like, how do you? What drew you to like this kind of stuff outside of like the breaking news piece? Is there something especially about public safety or these kind of stories? I know you say you like to dig deep. Like, is that part of it?
So when I first started out, I was a young reporter in Shreveport, Louisiana, and that was during like the George Floyd era. You know, I had just graduated college, and you don't know what you don't know until you get into the real world, you know? So essentially I noticed in Shreveport, they have a lot of homicides that were going on. I think when I was working there, I was working for KTAL, Channel 6 News out there. And it got to a point, especially during the summertime, where my news director had said, we're not even going to cover everybody who passes away. We're just going to cover things that are newsworthy. That's the way he said it, right? which can be interpreted in very negative
Yes.
ways, right? But it was so many that was going on.
Shreveport's not that big either.
It's really not.
Wow.
It's smaller than Indianapolis. But at some point, you had a homicide like every other day that was going on. You had a shooting every day.
Oh.
So when I would go to these scenes and just do my initial like reporting, just trying to figure out what happened, what does the police have to say, I think overall I would run into family members at the scene. And me being very proactive, I would talk to them if they would want to talk, because they're in shock at this point, right? Sometimes they wouldn't talk right then and there. Sometimes they would. But eventually I got them to trust me enough to share with me about their loved one like later on. And I think from there, it became kind of like a repetitive cycle of going back and forth. And I was trying to figure out as a young reporter, well, how do I make this a little bit beyond just the trauma of what's happened to these people?
Yeah.
You know, so I ended up trying to follow them as they go through their journeys, like with healing, trying to understand what happened. Some of them were very proactive, trying to get justice and trying to understand from city leaders, you know, okay, how are we going to stop this problem?
Right.
Asking police, how are we going to stop this problem? It's been going on for decades, you know.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to get to, because I think you are really thoughtful when it comes to like the victims' families, or even the perpetrators' families for that matter. Like just making sure like you see where that whole story leads. But I think it also starts to tell a story of like how these kind of situations impact whole communities,
Right.
and not just that individual that has passed or their immediate family, but it impacts the whole community,
Right.
and how people see their own neighborhoods.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. So when you're reporting on these kind of incidents, especially involving like police violence and things like that, there's often a wall of like silence from officials. And so like, have you experienced this? How have you been able to navigate that in getting information? I know you kind of just now talked about like family facing, but how does it go with like officials?
So as a journalist, I'm like a third party,
Yeah.
right? So oftentimes I don't think law enforcement has to tell me much information. And usually they don't. All the agencies I've ever worked with, they will just give me the simple, basic, this is what happened. So I think having those relationships with the families, that's what I think a lot of media miss. They just want the initial story, so they'll go get the initial story. Don't even care how the story pans out. And even if like family has concerns, or they're like, hey, like, I know I said it this way, I didn't mean it this way, you made it come off this way, you know, at that point, once a lot of these reporters get the story, they just kind of move on.
Yep.
I don't move on, right? I stay with these people, because eventually I know that could lead to something more. If police aren't going to give me information, the police are obligated to tell the family what's going on. So family will end up telling me too. So I'll usually get like information from them that I could go back to police, because sometimes family knows things that necessarily they don't understand, like how me as a reporter knows behind the scenes what I can ask.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
As a journalist, sometimes I don't know what I don't know. But if family tells me something and I know something else as far as a police element, and I'm like, wait a minute, and I go to the police and I'm like, hey, I have this information. Y'all need to answer this. If we're about transparency.
Yeah.
And I'll try to get the answers that way. Whether it's a
Wow.
confirmed yes or no, or whatever the case may be for a question.
That's surprising, because I think myself and a lot of people assumed that they were forthcoming with you all, with reporters.
Not all the time.
Wow.
No. You have to know what you're looking for, right? Because also, let's say you have like an officer involved shooting, right? Everybody's trying to figure, even the police, they're trying to figure out what happened in this moment before we can just release information. It's all preliminary information is what they like to
Right.
say. It's preliminary, right? So as a reporter, you got to do a million things in your head. You got to get to the scene. You got to figure out how to get this to your team, right? But then you also got to listen. You got to listen to what they're saying, and you got to be able to answer those very technical questions. You can say in your head, okay, there was an officer involved shooting, but oftentimes they're very strategic as far as police. They got to be very, very strategic in the way that they say certain things. So if you ever listen to how an officer involved shooting happens here with IMPD, they will be there and they will be like, okay, at least one officer got a gun pointed at him, and then an officer involved shooting happened. So you got to ask the questions like, can you confirm? And it sounds silly, but you're like, can you confirm that
Yes.
the suspect, the person y'all are calling a suspect, pointed a gun at
Yes,
police.
right.
And then whether or not they're like, it's still preliminary,
Yeah,
we don't know
that's
these
usually when they
things.
get real cagey about it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell? Could you tell with certain officers, like when you knew things weren't going to go the police department's way, like early on, like just kind of reading how they said things, body language and stuff like that?
So this is not confirmed whatsoever, but I noticed, and this is something that I would always tell myself when Bailey was in office. So when Bailey was chief, I could kind of tell if something was a little.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I definitely could.
Me
Listen,
too.
all respect to the former Chief Bailey, but I could tell based on how he said certain things.
Yep.
Because I think that at least with a lot of the agencies here in central Indiana, they have a process. They have a protocol. You know, they get to the scene. They understand what happens. I would notice if he said he never watched the body cam footage right then and there, that was a little like, we probably need to watch this case. Nothing would ever come out of it, but it was just something that made me go, oh, this is out of pattern recognition. I love psychology, so I like
too.
to recognize
Yeah, you can
patterns.
tell.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
there was a time on the calls when he'd be like, I'd be like, well, I'm trying to figure out why, blah blah blah, and he'd flat out be like, saying, I'm trying to figure that out too.
Okay,
like, you know,
right?
like,
But you know, maybe he
Okay.
can't say that in front of media, you know, and
Yeah.
everything too.
Yeah, but if I'm being honest, like I even like those small moments of just like, oh, you're questioning this too. Like it at least
It's transparent.
Not,
It's very transparent.
and it's not an indictment against an officer or anything like that. It's just saying yes, it's concerning to us too, and I also want to see that. And that's actually feedback that I've given them. Is just like. There's nothing wrong with saying that a situation is concerning or needs, further investigation, needs like something that indicates that you actually care and are willing to go deeper and figure out or that this could be more complicated than somebody pointed a gun and we just shot him.
Yeah.
Like it's anything that indicates that y'all are actually thinking and interested in investigating. Because I think from a community's perspective, community feels like these things aren't even investigated.
And that's,
like they
that's
don't
so
even care
unfortunate. Yeah.
that officers can just do whatever they want, that there's no that is the general feeling when we're in community. This is what we're hearing. And so when we get any kind of slight indications that no, you're actually open to investigating and following where this leads, even if it means an officer getting charges or an officer being removed or fired.
I will also say too, just to add to that. So I remember, I think it was after the case with the sergeant who cussed out the young man who was in the vehicle, the teenager, after the
when he told him he'd F him, kill him. Yes.
Yeah. I think I went to a community event at a local church, and it was Assistant Chief Wally who was there, and Deputy Chief Kendall Adams, who was also there. I don't know if I'm allowed to say names.
Yeah, no.
Y'all was just looking at each other,
I-
but
No,
we know these names. So.
Yeah.
okay, right. So, look, back to your point where you were saying like people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
Like when you're having these open dialogues, open conversations with people at the church, officers slipped in, sat down in the back. But everyone was saying especially a lot of black men were just like, I have horrible experiences with police. And like, they're like, I'm afraid. I don't understand. Like they genuinely show a lot of fear.
Yes.
And as somebody who always works with police, I'm, granted, I'm African American too. I'm black, but I'm kind of like, oh, it's only because I know certain things that I'm not afraid. Right. And I wish we could get to a point where people did understand a little bit better, like how it works, how policy works, how much of a voice they could have in a say-so, because you need community.
I'm concerned though with the things that I've seen. I do not feel comfortable in even encouraging people to remove that fear.
I don't. I agree.
You know what I mean?
Because what I've seen is, I'll give you an example. Is the grandmother of the young man that was shot in her driveway when he came home.
He was sleeping
in the car. He came home to surprise her for breakfast. she was also one of the people that was on the calls, and I think because she had the relationship with the IMPD brass, that she thought, well, okay, I can go call police and they'll just check on it and see who's in my driveway.
Did she call the police? Oh, okay. Okay.
She did, and but she had those relationships, and she thought just because, well, so and so's competent,
Yep.
so and so's not an idiot. Well, so and so's not the one that came out there and
Right.
did that, and
Right.
and I think that's the danger, which is why, like, I don't ever get too friendly with everybody knows that I don't get too
Yeah.
friendly
Right.
Yeah.
with police. There's a few that I'm really cool with. It's the ones that do security at the rink, but outside of that, and I'm not, I don't get overly friendly with any of
Yeah.
them. But because I understand that the next one I meet is not the person I know.
That's a fact.
And it's not removing the fear, but just I wish we had better understanding. Because I think
Yes.
if you want to combat an issue,
Are we okay?
Are we good? Okay.
okay, if we want to combat an issue that maybe we see, I think we do have to understand.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
so there'll be times where maybe one or two officers are there. I know Adams is always there to try to talk to community and kind of mediate that, but
I will say though, and I bring this up to IMPD a lot actually, that for community, our responsibility and level of accountability is the same as any other resident of Indianapolis, right? It's just across the board. Police, not, in positions of authority in the city, not, whatever. Just a general responsibility as neighbors, community members. IMPD, this is a job. Like, there's a responsibility. There is a standard. There's a code of conduct. There is behavior that is expected. There is, it is a job. And so some of the challenges that I have is when they'll say education for understanding, but a lot of times that understanding is only one-sided.
One-sided.
And you are putting the weight of that understanding on communities who, we didn't sign up for this, we didn't apply for this, we don't get paid to do this, but the people who did apply and train and ultimately get sworn in or whatever. Do they get sworn in?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
get sworn in, do like all of this stuff. Like, they go through all of this, and I feel like the responsibility is on the wrong side.
it should be on them to be like, I guess, is it called policing literacy or just
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we have
literacy.
cultural literacy. There
yeah,
we go.
Meeting community where they're at.
Yeah.
Like, and that's, I think it would help. Truthfully, it would help a lot in those instances of fear if they would just explain their actions.
Yeah.
Like,
Because
that would go a long way.
Instead of getting defensive and saying, I'm the
Yes.
police and you going to do what I say.
Yes.
Like, I've argued with people that I suspect are IMPD officers on back on Twitter back in the day. And I would always, that we would get, and I would entertain it, long as they didn't say something too wild.
Nothing crazy. Yeah.
I would entertain it, but I would say, here it is that you're expecting, and I think at the time, I think IMPD had like 15 to 1,700 officers. I said, you're expecting a city of about 900,000 to walk on eggshells around 15 to 1,700
Yeah.
people that are getting paid to service, and that just doesn't make sense. Like, it's on you to do the most of the changing.
It's wrong and unrealistic. Like, both. It is both wrong and unrealistic. Because the fact of the matter is, a lot of times those officers know their own policies, procedures, the laws that are, relevant to what they're doing in that moment. And they could just say that. Like, so when they come up to a door, like, hey, I'm asking you this. Like, I hate when they come to the door and ask somebody, you know why I pulled you over? Fool, if you don't just tell me why you pulled me over.
You know why they do that though, right? From what I was told. And it was funny because I learned this when I was at the community meeting. They want you to say what you
to tell on
figure.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want you to
which
tell on
is-
yourself.
But, and again, you're out here now. They'd be mad. They're mad when we record them and they feel like it's a gotcha moment. But you'll come up and ask me
I gotcha.
what I did. It's a gotcha moment.
It was like, I don't know. Is it the cocaine I got in the trunk,
is it the gun in my
right.
side,
or is it the car stolen?
Like,
which one is it, officer?
Right,
Like,
exactly. No, just tell me. And that's because at that point you're not operating in good faith. How you operating in good faith and you come up and ask me? Just come up and tell me, hey, you were going too fast. What's up? I need to see your license. I need, whatever.
I seen you cut off a driver back there and stuff like.
Hey,
all this like
you just blew through that stop sign.
And I think like as on the
information.
reporting side of that, I will get like a lot of people who email me, or they would, and kind of tell me about like their complaints with police. And then when I go back to police, they'll explain it a lot better than maybe they explained it in the moment with this person. So I have had people be like, okay, well, you explained it a lot better. I didn't understand what they were trying to say when they told me. So I think like what you're saying, like
any information sharing slows down the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It slows down the moment.
And that's what's needed. Like
That's what's
that helps
needed.
de-escalate stuff. Even if the person is confounded, like, well, what did you say? Well, that's
just like the teenager who was in the car. So they accused him of reaching. And of course, when the sergeant had made the threat and removed the teen from the vehicle, and the boy was like, why would you say that? That's those officers explaining, well, he was reaching, whether
right.
But that's kind of how they explain, like, well, no, like we were telling them why we said what we said.
They have to find better ways of getting people out of a car too, because like in that moment, I understand they probably couldn't say, hey, we feel like we saw him get in the car with a gun. Like, I know you can't say all that in the moment.
And I don't believe they did, but anyway,
No,
I don't believe they did, but anyway.
I know you can't do all that in the moment, but I think what we can do is slow down situations when he's saying, hey, I need you to get out of the car, and he's always like, listen, legally, I have probable cause to get you out of the car, so I need you to get out of the car, and then we can keep having this conversation about why, blah, blah. But right now, what's most important is everybody's safety. Like, you can slow things down, explain, get them out, and then, and truthfully, it probably would have helped that officer too. He probably wouldn't have threatened to kill somebody if you had even slowed down that moment for yourself, because apparently you needed a beat too.
Yep.
Because, I mean, it's not a calm person that threatens to kill someone.
I mean, in a car full of, like, and that was, I hate to have to go back to this, but again, it's like, if I know there's a car of 4 young teenagers, young black boys in the car, and somebody, at least one person has a gun, I'm not threatening to kill nobody.
Making them more scared. It doesn't serve anybody in that moment. Not them kids especially, but also not the officers that are there at the door.
But you know my position is like, wow, like we have a drone that can pick out a YN with a gun tucked in there, getting into a random car when there's hundreds of kids out.
That was my question. How, when it was so packed?
And then maintain that track on them until they get like a mile away from there, and like, no, that is better police work than I have ever seen IMPD do. And it was the day that Tanya Terry took over, and I'm not saying I wasn't a big fan of Chris Bailey, but Tanya Terry is not proven to be that great of a police chief that all of a sudden the day she takes over, they're doing the best police work ever.
I mean, we were talking about missing person cases, which we're gonna get to that too. But even at that, like, where was them drones when they was looking for that boy?
Yeah, or both of them boys.
I would love to know.
So I was told that even when you have the drones searching the area, behind that church, there's so much trees, so they wouldn't be able to see anything anyway.
Hold on, we got to provide context. This is about Travion Patel.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Purtle,
yeah, Purtle, yeah. But yeah, that's, it's just, I just to go back, I wish the understanding was from both sides. I think they could spend a lot more time in community, hearing from community, and actually making adjustments that they hear from community. Like, that would be great. And I think that would make it more likely as well that the community would even want to learn, because this is the other thing too. When they do have these information sessions, the people that you're bringing out are the people that probably don't have interactions with police anyway.
Or
It
if they do, their interactions with police is, well, my nephew's on the force or my uncle was
right.
on the force. Like there's a lot of commonality. Like when you see, because I used to go to these events, and then when
Yep.
you go start talking to people or eventually just discovering them later on, you realize like, well, you're a police family. Like, of course you come out to there, and then they get these people to say all the right things, but these are not the people that IMPD is typically dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Facts.
Like these aren't people that have my uncle on the force or their daddy was a cop or this
I
and
think
that.
I think the closest they get is when they talk to some of these youth organizations.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the closest they
The
get.
closest.
But like general residents, but they ain't coming out for that stuff. But that's what I'm saying. The buy-in could be there. I think if they spent more time trying to get to know community and understanding those perspectives, and then I think the community would respond. So I want to get back to like the reporting side of things. So like, how can you share a moment where you felt like your reporting like made a tangible difference, whether that was like a policy change or like a family finally felt seen, or like have you had those moments, and can you share those with us?
Yeah, here recently, Kathy Peters, is the sister of Reese Scott, who was a man who was blind here in Indianapolis. He was a Colts fan, and he was stabbed back in 2019.
Mm.
His case is still unsolved. He was stabbed in his apartment complex, and he died on his neighbor's in front of his neighbor's door when he went to go get help. So Catherine Peters reached out to all these different outlets, and I think I was the only reporter to respond. Once I did that and I ended up interviewing her, I learned that she had said that police had not gotten back to her. Like a detective had not kept up with her throughout the years to give her information about her brother's homicide. Now she doesn't live in Indianapolis, so I wondered if that might have been something that was kind of iffy going on. So all I did is email the police and say, hey, like I have a woman who is saying that the detective in this case was not being responsive. Like, do you guys want to respond to that? You know, that's an accusation, as well as, you know, who is this detective and what's going on with this case?
Right.
So eventually some stuff happened internally, I believe, and they came back, called me, and was kind of explaining transparently, yes, we might have dropped the ball, but this is what, you know, trying to move the story forward.
Yeah.
Being like, well, if you do have, you know, issues, you can go to our crime victim assistance unit.
Yeah.
You know, they're supposed to be there. They have certain protocols after like 2 years, you know, different things to try to stay in contact with families. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm just adding that to my story. But then Kathy calls me back and she's just like, thank you so much, because now I've had not only the detective, but 2, 3, 4, 5 officers calling to apologize to me.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, and even if there isn't any resolution or new information about her brother's case, just knowing that, like, at least I have law enforcement who are checking in on this. That case has since been reassigned. So, and it's reassigned to the cold case unit. So I'm just happy that something like that happened. I'm just a reporter, so I just got to do my due diligence. But I
Yeah.
guess in that, it came, oh, we did kind of miss this case,
Yeah.
but now we're going to like try to mediate this.
Yeah.
So,
I want to ask about you have a knack for getting at really both sides, making people think deeper about you know some of the shootings and homicides. Like last year, like every year, we have shootings. We had a shooting downtown for 4th of July. And one of the young men that was killed, I think he was 17, but
16.
16, yeah, 16, but his whole family history, starting with his mother and grandmother, was just really bad. And I actually knew the kid, you know, and I remember meeting him years before and realizing that he wasn't a child, like even then, and like he lets you
Yeah.
know. But like how do you feel like that's like your responsibility as a journalist to let people understand that it's it's just not kids just shooting each other down
Oh
here,
yeah.
but they are people, and there are reasons why things went this direction.
That's what I at first always struggled with was trying to figure out how do I tell a very nuanced story, because I'm not trying to write it in a way that excuses any
Right.
type of behavior. I just want audiences to know this is how it all started. So that story was interesting because when I met with mom, she wasn't even here in Indianapolis.
Hmm.
Right.
She was in a whole nother state. Didn't even know her son had been shot until the early hours of the morning. He had been running away back to Indianapolis, but she knew that he was here for 4th of July because he was with a family member.
Mm.
He was with her goddaughter, thinking like, okay, cool, it's a safe, go ahead, do your thing, have fun. I think it's important to talk about, like, at least in that story, the generational curses that were
Hmm.
going on.
Yeah.
Because it really does paint a picture. Indianapolis is a very small city.
Oh my goodness.
Almost like a lot of homicides are connected,
Yeah, they
especially
are.
with these young people.
Hmm.
So the fact that she shared her story and said, listen, I lost my mom, and I think the conversation started because I was like, you seem so stoic when I was talking to her. I was like, are you still in shock? Is that what that is? And she's like, well, I already lost two of my other boys. And I was like, oh, well, what happened with that? And she was like, girl, it's gone back. And so to see kind of like the violence that has happened generationally with this one family is important. Like, beyond just anybody who might be reading it or seeing it for the first time, I think it gives better context
And,
for people to understand.
I
and he himself was a suspect in the murder. It was what they later released.
that I think I'm not. I hate that this happens, but I'm glad that our conversation is went here because I want to highlight like just how common this has
Hmm.
been, especially for a long while now. So like our one of our neighbors, her husband was I want to say it was like paraplegic
Oh.
at this point, but he had gotten shot at a vigil for a different shooting. Okay, so he was shot at a visual, and that's what made him a paraplegic. Her grandson was shot and killed on Thanksgiving Day a few years ago. Like she came to our door. It was a whole thing. But then right after that, his little brother shot and killed their uncle in the grandmother's front yard,
Oh
in the
my
other
goodness.
grandmother's front yard. So yeah, and I don't think people understand that like when we're seeing folks who are either being a victim of gun violence, especially, or a perpetrator,
And
um,
both sometimes.
both, unfortunately, like it is like a deep pattern
Hmm.
of they've already lost people, they've already been involved in things, they've
Hmm.
already been involved in other shootings. Like i I try to stress this to our community, especially to our young black men, a whole lot. But like if you've been around a shooting, if you've lost somebody to a shooting, your chances of being involved in something, especially being killed yourself,
Yeah.
skyrockets. Like it statistically, it is just so true. So it's so it sounds like super messed up, but on the other side, as an advocate, I think this is also huge opportunities for us to get in front of things,
Right.
right?
So like, at least on the police side of things, they're familiar with you.
Yes.
They know who you are. On the youth advocate side of things, I hope it's like reaching out to those kids, making
Yeah.
sure they get those kids, because it's like I know you've been affected by gun violence. I often wonder, as far as community, what more could we do? If it's the responsibility of us being a village to each other.
Yes.
Um,
I think a lot of the community does not. We all live very sheltered lives, I think,
Yes.
and I mean, unless you like live directly around people that are dealing with this, you may not notice. Like you think, well, dang, I heard about this on the news, or I heard something went
right.
on a couple streets over, but you don't know the people, you don't know the
Yep.
circumstances of how you look at their family, and it's boom, 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 boom. This has been going on for 15, 20, 25 years, stuff like that going on. And I think more importantly, the policymakers, like our
Yep.
public safety committee on city council, they're mostly out of touch. They don't really understand stuff like this, and so they think like, oh well, a curfew for somebody that ain't got no parents left is gonna fix.
You
Yeah.
know what
And
I mean?
that's my responsibility as the journalist. That's what I was trying to.
Yes.
I'm like, hey, I want to at least have a story here. Like you
Yes.
have tangible evidence based on this news story that
Yes.
this is generational.
Mhm.
You know, because
Yes.
there's other stories and other homicides where I'm like, I'm doing profiles related to this. And then it circles back to this, and then this kid was related to this one somehow. You know,
Yeah.
I'm finding, or I used to find stories where years ago, you know, there's, and I don't want to bring up any particular cases, but a teen that was killed years ago is the person that was a suspect in that is now over 18 involved in this case that they're looking at, you know, and I'm like, oh, so it's all a circle, you
Yeah.
know, and if I can put that in a news story, I think it does do justice, like,
Yeah.
because it lets people know, like, everything's everything.
Given some of those backstories too, it starts to humanize
Yeah,
these
for sure.
situations too, because a lot of people look at it as like, oh, it's just a bunch of criminal deviants just out here running. It's like,
And it's
No,
always
it's-
it's always about kids. And what my experience has been is that adults drive a lot of this stuff.
Man.
Like in
Yes.
my time on this planet, which is quite lengthy, as y'all may know.
I'm just playing.
45.
But before is, I mean, I remember recording somebody 13 years ago, and I'll walk in, and one of the few times 'cause I had to stop recording people because the quality and all that, but outside of my house anyway. I walk in, and it's his mother's crib, and they've got like all these little baggies and stuff ready to package up, and his mama was in on it, like
Oh yes,
Yeah.
all the time, like that.
there
Yep.
there was a situation from what I heard, the recent what was it, spring break, when police basically were like, oh, we're going to be proactive for spring break, so all the kids that are already on probation, we're going to go check in on them. There was, I know, right, but there was a mother who was involved in one of them, who was just like trying to hide the drugs when they, or trying to hide the evidence when police went in.
And now listen, in a lot of those situations, it's a single parent household.
Yep.
They're trying to figure out how they're going to make it. You would be shocked at how many things just come back to pay people a livable wage.
Yeah.
Give people legal pathways that could actually sustain their life, be able to pay rent, buy food, because that's part of the challenge. It's like you can go kill yourself in a warehouse and you still can't afford to buy a home. You still
Right.
can't afford to feed your kids.
And be there for your children as
Yeah.
well.
It's so
I've had a lot of those mothers.
So I'm sure
share
they're
those
grateful
stories.
that there's another source of income.
and but also I ain't even got to talking about the uncles and big brothers and everybody.
And see, I'll have a lot of the mothers who will tell me that, like, you know, if they lose someone, their sons, they'll be like, he was helping out.
Yes.
Like he was helping out. He started working when he was 13 to try to help me out.
That's why they love to tell these kids to stay in a child's place. But in totality, though, they should not have to be providing for their homes.
It's
But we-
also, and I'm sorry to cut you
Yeah,
off,
no,
but
you're good.
like environmental as well.
Yes.
I remember, and these are how these stories come about, right? So a press release from Indiana State Police, who's just like, hey, we had this guy shoot himself. We are not involved, which automatically makes my antennas go up. But we showed up to serve a warrant, and he was inside this home, and he shot himself. We are investigating. Okay, cool. I start looking into that, right? I end up finding this young man's mother, plenty of his family members as well. And it turns out that, yes, although it was a suicide, his story is
remember that.
way more
I remember
nuanced than
that.
that.
I remember that
Way more. He was a Indie Peace Fellow. He was working for the city DPW, right? And when I asked, I'm like, okay, he had beat a murder charge. He was turning his life around.
Yep.
I used his own words because he was on a podcast, sharing his life story. Like, this is what happened to me. This is what I want to do better. He's a father. He was a young father now. He wanted to be there for his kid. And in hearing his mother say, the only reason he had these guns, because apparently it was a search warrant for his firearms. The only reason he had the guns is you don't just get out of that lifestyle. So he wanted to feel protected,
Yeah.
but he knew. And apparently she had called him, FaceTimed him while the police were outside. And he's like, I just can't go back to jail.
Yeah.
And that's just really, really sad. And I wanted to make
Yeah.
sure, I don't want it to just be a suspect who shot himself trying to get away from police.
Right.
Because there's so many things that come out of that. Oh, he's a coward. Oh, just another. I hate when they say like, oh, usual suspects.
Yeah.
That's so annoying. His life was way more nuanced than that. And I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure I really told that story.
Man, most of it is. I think our most journalists don't put the time and energy into it. Also, I'm just gonna be transparent. Like there are certain family names that when you see in the newspaper, and it's more than one.
Yeah.
It's more than one. I think so. I think recently it's more one particular, but I can tell you over like the last 15 years, there's multiple names when I seen certain last names in the paper. I'm like, oh my God, what am I about to read? What happened here? How many different people are involved? Who's doing what? And you know, not to demonize like anybody's family, but a lot of this stuff is it is generational. Like some of the behaviors, the poverty is often generational.
Yep.
And I think at the end of the day, when we talk about youth gun violence, well, first of all, according to the laws of our land, somebody over 18 had to have bought that gun to begin with.
These kids are getting stuff off Instagram.
Yeah, like
Jesus.
that like it had to be an adult in there. And when it comes to all the other craziness going on, and especially drug dealing, where the kids didn't go down to Mexico and get this stuff. Like they wasn't waiting on a shipment at the dock. It has to be
Right.
an adult involved in this. And I think when all is all said and done, it's like, well, these kids just manufactured all this. No, they didn't.
And like the lessons you learn the hard way are the ones that stick with you. And I'm saying that because we have created situations, systems, processes that have taught people that the way that they get to a certain life or the way that they get to certain things is through these kind of pathways. And when they've lived through that, watched that, especially if they've watched it worked out in any way for somebody else, then it's hard to get them to break that. And I think when you talk about some of the families, right, some of the benefits of being notorious in that way is that it provided.
It did.
You know?
I mean, I mean, there are literally, I've had conversations with people here recently, and they're talking about like, well, why they not selling weed anymore, and they're like, and why so and so is making it, and I'm like, well, so and so is basically a nepo baby. His daddy sold weed, and his granddaddy did. Like, and this is literally, people don't even understand. Like, there are generations of people. I know a bunch of people that I've known for decades, and it was like, well, their daddy did this, and they literally inherited the contacts, the plugs, and all of this stuff, and people don't understand that.
Yep. Yep. It's
I want to go back to what you said about other, like, it seems like other reporters don't try to dig deep.
Yeah, they do not. Or well,
Y'all know who y'all should really get? Tracy Compton. Her job, she works with Poynter Institute for journalism.
Oh yes.
So she's the editor.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, we talked
okay.
So her job is to analyze media and the media landscape here, because y'all
Oh,
already
we're gonna
know.
have this conversation.
Y'all already know what's going on
We
in
are gonna
media wise, right?
Yeah.
But I can say, at least from a TV perspective, as somebody who was in news, right? So when I was in TV, I don't think I had time to like sit, and that's the thing. It's the time. It's I got so much time to just find who I need to find, interview them, shoot them, record them, go back, edit it, and then I have to get pretty for the 5 and 6 o'clock newscast. If you have a 4 o'clock newscast, and then after that, go home because you're tired and you probably didn't even get a chance to eat. I think we end up missing a lot of that. Just sit, we don't have time to just go to an event, even if it's not for a story. Just go to sit, right? I've been offered these opportunities to just come see what the kids are talking about at these youth organizations. I'm like, okay, cool. Let me go and just like listen to what the young men and the young women are saying, just to get like a glimpse. I wish if we had more, the same way media tasks IMPD or these police agencies or these city leaders with connecting better with community. I think media does too.
Yes.
We need to connect way better.
That's something I request on a regular basis, that media be at these accountability tables like everybody else, because they have a responsibility in the way that these stories are told and covered as well, and how the community perceives them. An example I use consistently is when they were putting news out and titles and headlines that made it seem like our Chuck E. Cheese out here on Washington Street was shot up.
When was that?
And
that was 2023. I don't think I was here yet.
Feels right. It feels right. It was somewhere around there.
Right.
But they literally, what actually happened, it was a very targeted hit. They pulled up, they waited for the dude that they wanted to came out, waited for him to put his kids in the car and stuff, and killed him, right?
Yeah.
So they kept the people inside for their safety, and the people inside ended up breaking the windows because folks was tripping, okay? Now, they're showing like video clips of broken windows, pictures of broken windows. Oh, a shooting at Chuck E. Cheese, and it's like you're assuming
it's you have to ask police that.
But they're making, with them showing that imagery and saying
it's
there was
shaping
a shooting,
and framing.
It's making community think,
like,
we can't even go to Chuck E. Cheese. They shot up. They trying to shoot up where kids at, and it's like, no, it was a shooting in the parking lot that was very targeted.
Gotcha.
They got who they wanted to got, and they left. Like it was.
And we forget. I think media honestly needs to remember the way we shape and frame people's
that's all they
mindsets matter. Like, for example, I remember I had a boss in Little Rock, and she was a woman. Mind you, she was a white woman. So I'm doing a story about people taking fake money at the gas stations. Counterfeit, right? So I just go to the gas station. I'm over here like recording whoever. And so I take the footage back to my boss. And as a white woman, she was just like, well, which gas station did you go to? Well, I'm always one to always be rooted in my community. So I'm like, oh, I just went to the one that's over there off blah, blah, blah. And she was like, you have a lot of African Americans. So I don't want people to assume that fraud comes with African Americans. Go shoot other people. And I'm like, oh, that type of stuff matters. I'm not thinking, like I'm a young reporter. Right. I'm just, something that's fast. Something else that happens a lot of times with media. We forget to get more sources. Outsource the sources that you talk to. If we always talk the wild style, we need to find someone else so that we're not always giving such and such a platform. If you're always talking to a certain youth leader all the time because he is accessible.
My God. My God.
Or a not youth leader.
Or a not youth leader.
He's just a pastor of some organization and claims that they work with youth.
That's a fact.
It is important that you talk to as many people as possible, because if I do see something where people are like, oh, I'm sick and tired of this person. Oh, he doesn't speak for us. You got to listen to that. I think as a journalist, especially if you're not from here, a lot of times these reporters are not born and raised in the city.
Yes.
This is just like a stepping stone for them to go on to their next opportunity. So I think, sure, for you, it's simple because they're accessible, but try to learn to be accessible to other people. You'll be surprised what more you find out.
Because I can tell you, I'm amazed at TV journalism. It's really quick paced. They don't have time, but it's amazing. Sometimes they will take the time and it'll be for the wrong stuff. I remember Thanksgiving last year. So somebody I know, I used to record him, Derek Fisher. Man, they ran his mugshot and his rap sheet for a decade because he shot somebody on Thanksgiving. But the reality was, and this is fact, I've looked at the affidavits and everything, is he had his kids in the car. He sent one of his kids to go get his other kid at his baby mama's house, and her brother, who did not live there, came down with a gun on him. And that's how he ended up shooting the guy. And the guy had already made threats because I had already heard it from other people. But, they didn't and they should have been able to get a little bit of context from the scene,
if
but
they cared to.
they didn't. That
That's the
they
thing.
ran his rap sheet and
And police aren't gonna give that at all. So it's just whatever you can try to find. But I think that's why connection is important.
Yeah.
Connection, like, if I can't figure out much about a young man who was shot and killed, but he was a kid, he's 17, whatever. Even if police say, "Yep, there was a gun that was found," that's all we can tell you. I want to make sure I can, because sometimes you're surprised.
Yeah.
These youth leaders are like, "Yep, that was my kid," but it's only because I have that connection that I can get better context to where maybe a youth leader is telling me, not saying that this happened, but just being like, he wasn't the one who did it. Somebody shot him, and I know people are just gonna be like, "Oh, he had a gun on him," but he had to.
Yeah.
I'm like, dang, but
Yeah.
that's the environment that they're in, that they feel like they have to have it. So media will run, and that's something we definitely got to talk about. Media will take whatever information
and
they
run
can
with
get.
it.
Just use the Riverside situation. Exactly. So with that, police are just putting out what they wanted to be like a very nice, oh, look at our officers, like they're doing great. This is, mediating situations that could have gone worse, right? They put it out. They put the young man's name out there. Now, granted, they didn't put the mugshot out. That was on media, who went to just say, okay, well, let me dig deeper for this story to figure some stuff out.
You dig deep to find a mugshot, but you won't dig deep to find context.
And they did go to get the probable cause affidavit, right? And you're just trusting that this probable cause affidavit was exactly what happened, or how community would perceive it to have happened. Other information comes out.
The other information was that they looked at the video like, this did not happen.
You can't see it happen.
Yeah.
You can't see it happen.
No,
You
the
can't,
prosecutor
because the body
said
cam
said that it doesn't support what you said, but IMPD was like, well, you can't see what the officers saw.
But with that, it is just, okay, well, now that we know that the case dropped, now that we've kind of seen like, oh, well, this young man, 18, is going to get an expungement. He's going to go on with his life. But now his face is out there, and his name is out there, forever cemented on the internet, in these news stories. I think they have since been taken down, but it's just a matter of what if they weren't taken down because people weren't raising concern for it.
They didn't equally share stories or cover the fact that this was dismissed.
Exactly.
Once it was.
And even IMPD's statement towards the situation is not an apology or an admission of wrong. It's saying that, well, you just didn't see the whole story, so maybe he did do all of this.
It's their preliminary information, and they will often say they will often say that what will they say? They'll be like no one's guilty, like they're only guilty when charged,
they're
like not as guilty
until proven guilty,
innocent until proven guilty, right? So
yes, so there's one more thing that I want to ask you about before we get out of here, and we're gonna bring you back because we have lots of other things to talk about. But
oh yeah, we didn't even get to everything on the paper.
I know, with the consolidation of like our local media and stuff, I would love to hear your perspective of that, because now all of our news outlets are owned by 2 different owners. Right? That's where
not yet.
No, I think they blocked one of the
did
sales.
For Tegna.
Oh, they blocked one.
For Nexstar with
Nexstar.
Tegna.
Okay.
Nexstar owns Fox 59.
Yes.
And Tegna owns Wish channel, or not Wish, but Channel 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I thank God, because I go to WTHR now more often because I know that Wish and WRTV was, first of all, it's AI driven, and they make mistakes quite often. They make mistakes, and I'm like, let me go see what WTHR is saying. Fox 59 makes a lot of mistakes too. I'm not going to talk about that on here too much, but they make a lot of mistakes. But I'm gonna try WTHR and compare, and I compare 3 of them. I don't compare 4 anymore or 5. I compare 3 to see, okay, who's saying what, because you just don't know. And Fox makes so many mistakes. Like, they just make up stuff out of the blue. I'm just be honest with you. So, like, when we talk about like some of these recent cases, especially with the missing persons stuff, it is seen that sometimes the community just makes up its own story that is like just not congruent with the actual facts. And how do you balance all that? Because everybody, I know if I make a status about some of the stuff, they'll be in there trying to tell me stuff that didn't even happen, and I know it didn't happen. And so I know you have to be, you have to be getting all of this too. Like, no, this is what happened, and they so and so took them to outer space and all that. I'm like, no, I don't think that happened. Like, how do you deal with that? All that?
It's a delicate balancing act, because I'm always the type of journalist that wants to reach the people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you got to lead the people where they are.
I mean,
I'm so sorry.
You gotta
You have to.
I hate to say it, but I felt the same way. I'm like, y'all doing too much. Y'all got to get off.
That's a fact.
I seen something the other day that said, I just told IMPD that they got 200 investigators on Facebook.
I saw it.
And I was like, man, if only. But I think there's a responsibility as actual journalists, right?
Mm-hmm.
People already don't trust media. So I think that as a responsibility, it's hard because you got to balance not feeding into, because sometimes you can feed into something.
You can.
And then it ends up turning bigger than what it was supposed to be. But also just give people the facts, right? And you got to, I want to teach people better media literacy. So I think that for me, that's always been a given. Like, I want to teach better media literacy so that they understand. They can read between the facts.
Yeah.
If you don't see traditional media talking about it, it doesn't mean often that they are just trying to blatantly ignore it, or that there's a conspiracy or anything like that. I need people to understand that. But I think you just give people the facts.
Some of your articles where you took the time to go explain basically debunk myths or falsehoods that were just going around, those were the most requested. Like, I would post them like, well, it's paywalled, or how do I get to see this and that? And, I would get that, where years before I could post a lot of articles about stuff and nobody asked. Like, it was only the people that either they clicked on it and they could get to it, or they clicked on it and couldn't and didn't care.
Right.
But I found that when you took the time to go do that, it was a much greater amount of people that seemed to want to have access to those articles, saw value in the journalism.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. If you can see value in the journalism, I think you're willing to invest in it.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to, the same way that you give them the value, you got to make sure you're valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Well, we're going to have to cut it because I don't want us to go too long. But I want to thank you for coming. I also want to give you the opportunity to tell folks how they can connect with you in whatever, comes next.
Okay. Hey, guys. I'm so happy that I got to do this with y'all. Y'all can just follow me on my social medias. Facebook and Instagram is the Jade Melody. And then on my Twitter, you can follow me at I am Jade Jackson. So, yay!
Thank you so much for coming. It was such a joy, and I'm looking forward to having more
conversations. Oh, wait, one more time.
Oh,
I'm working on my website right now,
okay,
but it's gonna be up. So, website is jadejacksonofficial.com.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you guys for having me,
and thank you guys for watching. It's another episode of the Black Briefing Podcast. We appreciate y'all. Peace.